Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Welcome to Temple B'nai Israel. As you can see, I'm flying solo tonight. Our student cantor, Iris, was supposed to be with us this evening, but the hurricane wiped out her flight, and so she could not get here this evening. And then Beth, our cantorial soloist, couldn't make it because she was already booked, etc., etc., etc. And so after making a few well-placed phone calls and coming up empty, we're going to do what we can do tonight, and you're all going to sing really loud with me, I am sure. Yes? Yes, thank you for that. I'm sure we'll still have a very nice Shabbat together. We have some fun learning also this evening for our Torah portion, Parashat Vayera, and should be a really nice evening. So let's turn and greet each other as we say Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, and Shabbat Shalom to everyone at home, and to Pete, and who's helping us stream this evening. So we appreciate everyone tuning in at home. We're on page 128. And let us very much join together for Hine Ma Tov on the count of shalosh. Achat, shtayim, shalosh. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. On page 120 and 121, Kabbalat Panim, we're going to rise together for candles and Kiddush. We invite Ray and Rachel Sepko to come forward to lead us. We rise together.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us, as their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
You.
Oops. Which I had a big mouth.
There you are.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Get ready to go right into Kiddush. Oh, thank you.
Vayi erev, vayi boker yom hashishi. And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day. The heaven and the earth were finished in all their array. On the seventh day God finished the work that God had been doing, and God ceased on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because on it God ceased from all the work of creation that God had done. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu
Eloheinu melech haolam.
Borei pri hagal.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zicharon lema'aseh v'reishit. Ki hu yom techila lemikrai kodesh zecher litziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu vacharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim. V'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. L'chaim. Delicious. We switch back to the good stuff. Kedem. Okay. We can take our seats. We're on page 127. Let's read responsively. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. Together, on Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. Let's turn to page 130 and continue together in the English. Come, let us sing joyously to Adonai. Raise a shout for our rock and deliverer. Let us come into God's presence with praise. Let us raise a shout for God in song. For Adonai is a great God, the great ruler of all divine beings. On the next page, we continue. In God's hand are the depths of the earth. The peaks of the mountains are God's. God's is the sea. God made it, and the land which God's hands fashioned. Come, let us bow down and kneel. Bend the knee before Adonai, our Maker. For Adonai is our God, and we are the people God tends, the flock in God's care. Oh, if you would but heed God's charge this day. Let's turn now to page 145. Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer on the mystery of a withered leaf, unripened fruit so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Together, teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days. Lest my day be today as the one before, lest routine sets my ways. On the next page, let's rise together. You have to help me with the Aronson. Yada-dai-dai-dai, 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 yada-dai-dai-dai. Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed Le'olam Va'ed Yada-dai-dai-dai Yada-dai-dai-dai yada die die die, 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 yada die die die. We can take our seats. We're on page 148 as we continue in the Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim b'chokhmah poteach she'arim uvitvuna mishane etim umachalif et hazmanim umesader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono. Borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or. Uma'avir yom umevi laila, uma'avdil ben yom uvein laila, Adonai tzavaot shemo. El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. On page 150. In the middle of the page, let's continue together in the English. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. On the next page, we rise together for the Shema. We're going to have Ari come up and help us with the prayer, help us lead.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Vayed.
Thank you. You can take your seat. We can take our seats. We're going to continue now on page 154 with V'ahavta. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר נוחי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. On page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot together, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai. Mi chamocha bo elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar bakodesh, nora tehilot osefele, nora tehilot osefele. Yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai. We're on page 161. At the top of the page, let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. On page 162, let's continue with Vishamru. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. שמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. On page 165, a little meditation before the Amidah. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will. Let's rise together for the Amidah Tefillah. We're going to have Ari come up again to help us lead.
Adonai sifata tiftachu fiya itihilatacha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Abotenu B'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanurah El Yom Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot ומביא גאולה לפני בניכם למען שמו ואהבה.
מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים וחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורוחי חולים, ומתיר אסורים. ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום ילוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. Please be seated. Please be seated. Great job. We're on page 173 at the top of the page. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace together. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day, and may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-Shabbat. On page 175. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer, wherever we live, wherever we seek you. In this land, in Zion restored, in all lands, you are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha ba'ira na'avod. On page 177. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words. Together, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. On page 179. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Together, bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praise to you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamivarech et amo Yisrael bashalom. Lo yisagoy el goy cherev, lo yilmedu od milchama. Nation shall not take up sword against nation. They shall never again know war. We're going to turn to page 371 as our thoughts turn to our loved ones, members in our community who are in need of healing. whether they are in need of mental, physical, or spiritual healing. We take them into our hearts this time of prayer. In the middle of the page, let's join together. Mi sheberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. The congregation is thinking of this week and wishing a complete healing of body, mind, and spirit. We're thinking of Pat Adamson, Eric Adler, Aiden John Ashley, Raymond Douglas Alcorn, Dr. Marty Bilo, Evan Bin, Frankie Clement, Ann Cole, Richard Corwin, Mark Edelstein, Mickey Edelstein, Benjamin Edelstein, and Brian Edelstein, Danielle Heyman Feist, Eric Fisk and Z Fisk, Philip Gelman, Bob Gold and Carolyn Gold, Jennifer Gousset, Barbara Green and Buddy Green, Marvin Hollander, Stuart J., Robert Jaffe, Lori Cattleman, Doris Kirschner, Wendy Sugarman Krosnoff, Hank Corin, Dr. Sonia Linke, Michael Lynch, Dolores Munsick, Ruth Poehler, Gloria Rodetsky, Lee Siegel and Stacy Siegel, Dr. Cindy Steinman, Pete Tanner, and Fred Truax. If you'd like to mention the name of someone you are thinking of for this prayer of healing, please speak their name as my eyes meet yours. We add to these names all the names spoken aloud at home as we say, Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha laavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We now continue with Tefillat Halev, the prayer of the heart. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, vimru, vimru, amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Hopefully, when you came in, or I think actually Sandy was handing these out, our study sheets for today. a little more up my alley. Okay, Parshat Vayera. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Genesis has like the best Torah portions because you have to actually struggle with what to talk about. You know, there are some portions in Leviticus, God knows, and in other places where there isn't that much to really speak about. It's like sacrifices, skin disease, fantastic. But in Vayera, you have like three really cool narratives. We have the narrative of Abraham welcoming the strangers, the three guests, that then leads to the birth narrative of Isaac. We have the story we're going to touch upon today, Sodom and Gomorrah. And then at the very end of the portion, what do we have? The binding of Isaac. Very nice. And so it's actually, we read this portion about a month ago, during the high holidays, month and a half, because we read it for Rosh Hashanah, and we also read it this week as well as we kick off our Torah reading cycle a couple of weeks ago with Simchat Torah. So now we are just getting to that very beginning parts of Genesis. We had the Adam and Eve narrative, the Noah narrative, and now we're sort of at the beginning of the Abraham narrative. So Abraham, his nephew Lot, takes a little trip. They can't really live together really well at this point. They're sort of arguing with each other. Families fight once in a while, and so they're just not really getting along. So Lot decides, you know what, I'll take the schlep, I'll move to Sodom. Not the great place to live, it turns out, not the best one. As we know, there's a lot of wickedness that happens in Sodom, and then God makes this plan of destroying the cities. And this story has been fascinating for so long because the question has been asked more than once, what actually was the problem in Sodom? And there are perspectives perhaps that are aired amongst other communities about what the sin of Sodom is, but the funny thing about that is it's never mentioned once in rabbinic literature, that the reason that the people think the Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed. It's never really mentioned in rabbinic literature. It's never viewed as the actual sin of Sodom. So let's take a look at the text first, and then we'll dive into a little interpretation and further clarify what I'm talking about. So Genesis 18:20-21, the Eternal said, "The outrage of Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin is so grave. I will go down to see whether they have acted altogether according to the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will take note." Maybe it was an error, miscommunication, got a bad memo. It happens sometimes. God has to investigate and see what's going on in Sodom and Gomorrah. And so we continue to read. The two angels arrived in Sodom in the evening as Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to greet them, and bowing low with his face to the ground, he said, "Please, my lords, turn aside to your servant's house to spend the night and bathe your feet. Then you may be on your way early." But they said, "No, it's okay. We'll spend the night in the square." But he urged them strongly, so they turned his way and entered his house. He prepared a feast for them and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. They had not yet lain down. Time for a little schluff. They had a good meal, but they hadn't gone to sleep yet. When the townspeople, the men of Sodom, young and old, all the people to the last man, gathered about the house, and knocking on the door, none too politely, to ask for the two gentlemen to do some non-sanctuary talk things to them. And so that is seen as the problem, right? That they are going to try to sleep with, to force themselves on, these two guests. But Ezekiel comes in the biblical text, sort of in our prophetic readings, and in his point of view, Ezekiel says, "Only this was the sin of your sister Sodom, arrogance. She and her daughters had plenty of bread and untroubled tranquility, yet she did not support the poor and the needy. In their haughtiness, they committed abomination before me, and so I removed them, as you saw." That fire and brimstone sort of part of the text. So Ezekiel the prophet, and remember here he's prophesying to the Israelites, and so he's saying, look what happened to your sister, quote unquote, another big city. Look what happened to Sodom. They were destroyed, and they were destroyed because they were arrogant and they were cruel to the guests that were there. They had all their possessions, all their materials, but they didn't support who? The poor and the needy, right? They did not help the stranger. In fact, quite the opposite in our text, right? We're not looking to help the stranger, looking to harm the stranger. And so the question becomes, okay, well, where do we go from here then with this text, this idea of inhospitality, being an ungracious host, being sort of cruel, being unkind to people who are foreigners, who are entering into the land of Sodom. So the rabbis pick up on this on the next page in the Talmud. And as you can see, the rabbis give a little bit of poetic license. They have a little fun here because the rabbis like to have a little fun when it comes to their interpretations. The Gemara, which is the Talmud, discusses the sins of the people of Sodom. They had beds on which they would lay their guests. When a guest was longer than the bed, they would cut him. And when the guest was shorter than the bed, they would stretch him. Not very nice. That's not how you treat people, give them a little bit of something else to sleep on perhaps. And so that is one very extreme way we can say, that is not appropriate for how to treat a guest. So they keep going. Furthermore, they declared in Sodom, let one who crosses on the ferry give 1 dinar as payment. That makes sense, to be fair. You're taking the ferry, it's free. It's not free to ride the ferry. Staten Island ferry is actually free. But for the most part, you pay a little something, a little shekel to get on the boat. That's fair. Let one who does not cross on the ferry but walks on the river give 2 dinars. So they have to pay double for not taking the ferry. So if they're just walking, they still have to pay a tax, a toll, just for walking around. In addition, when there was anyone who had a row of bricks, each and every one of the people of Sodom would come and take 1 brick and say to him, hey, look, I'm only taking 1, and you are certainly not particular about such an inconsequential item, and they would continue to do this until none remained. So if you imagine like a brick fence, like you're trying to build some sort of, structure, and everyone's there, oh, I'll take this brick. But little by little by little, what happens to the wall? What happens to the fence? It's gone, right? They've stolen from him 1 brick at a time until the person has nothing left. And the same thing about these people who are gardening, right? Anyone who would cast garlic or onions to dry, each and every one of the people of Sodom would come and take one and say to him, I only took one garlic, 1 onion, and they would do this until nothing else remained, right? And so they would slowly impoverish strangers who came to the community, foreigners who came into the community, people they didn't like, right? They would slowly oppress them little by little until they had nothing left. Sanhedrin again continues. When a poor person would come to Sodom, each and every person would give him a dinar, give him a little dollar, which sounds nice, right? Here's a welcome to the neighborhood coin, right? You got a little tzedakah. But the name of the giver was written on each dinar. And so he would live there, but they would not ever sell him or give him bread. So he couldn't spend the money they gave him. So eventually they would die of hunger. And then when the person would die, each would get their dollar back. And they knew what it was because their names were written on them, And so again, the rabbis are being, they're exaggerating a little bit, but they're trying to demonstrate really what the true sin of Sodom is. And it is about, again, being unkind to others, about being unfair, about being inhospitable to guests. This gets a little PG-13, but we'll keep going. There was a young woman who would take bread out to the poor people in a pitcher, so the people of Sodom would not see it. The matter was revealed, and they smeared her with honey, and they positioned her on the wall of the city, and the hornets came and consumed her. So the issue here is not only were they not content, right? They were not content just to be cruel to others, but what did they do? They punished kindness. They turned kindness into a crime. They turned being nice, working with other people, sort of showing them compassion. They turned that to be punishable in a very cruel way. And this next story over here is similar. Rabbi Judah said, they made a proclamation in Sodom saying, everyone who strengthens the hands of the poor or the needy with a loaf of bread shall be burnt by fire. Pelatith, the daughter of Lot, was wedded to one of the magnates of Sodom. She saw a certain very poor man in the streets of her city, and her soul was grieved on his account. As it is said, was not my soul grieved for the needy? That's from Job. So what did she do? Every day when she went out to draw water, she put in her bucket all sorts of provisions from her home, and she fed that poor man. The men of Sodom said, how does this poor man live? When they ascertained the facts, they brought her forth to be burnt with fire. And so again, another sort of demonstration of the cruelty of the people of Sodom, that they, again, punished those who wanted to help, who wanted to be part of a solution, who couldn't bear to see people suffering. We're getting a sense now of why this whole city was wiped out, right? Because it's not sustainable. It's not the way to live. We can't be cruel to each other, because we can take it as a metaphor that maybe when we act in this way, we wind up destroying ourselves, destroying our own communities, when we act in a cruel way, a vicious way, where the poor and the needy are neglected and those who help them are punished, are castigated. So Pirkei Avot takes another look at this and says there are 4 types of character in human beings. One says, mine is mine and yours is yours. And that's the commonplace type. But some say this is the Sodom type character. And the reason why they say that, well, let's read the whole passage and we'll go back to it, because that doesn't sound so bad, right? A lot of people are fine with what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. That makes sense. That's logical. One says, what's mine is yours and yours is mine. That makes no sense, the rabbi said. It's like it doesn't mean anything to say what's mine is yours and what's yours is mine. That doesn't work. One person says, what's mine is yours and yours is yours. That's the righteous person. That's the pious person. That's the giver of tzedakah, right? That this person's able to give to others, but doesn't expect anything in return. And then the last one says, what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine. And that is the Rasha. That is the wicked person, right? Who says what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine too. Sort of cartoonish villainy, this idea. Now that first one, as we saw, what's mine is mine and yours is yours, doesn't again on the surface sound so terrible, That can make sense. And that's why it says this is a commonplace type. That's how most people would behave. And I would say that this extra little tack on was almost a dissenting opinion in a way. That's why I changed the and to a but, because I think it's really but some people say that it's the Sodom type character, because it's the one that doesn't want to help anybody, that wants to sort of say, okay, I have my stuff, I'm fine, and I don't really care about you. I'm not taking from you, but I don't care about you. Whatever happens to you, that's fine. That's. And so I think he's giving it, this rabbi here is giving it sort of a different take, because I think we saw with Sanhedrin and other ones that they were saying what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine too. That was really, I think, more of the Sodom attitude. But this one's giving it, again, a different spin, the idea that we can't be apathetic, when people are suffering. We can't just say, okay, I have what's mine, and if you're suffering, if you're sick, if you are needy, that's not my problem. That is not something that I have to involve myself with. If you are suffering and you need help, I can't just turn a blind eye. And what I would also say to this, why I really think here, I very purposely started with the entire Torah portion of where it starts and where it finishes, or at least what's the next story. What was, again, that very first story in Vayera? But Abraham and the guests, right? And so what we see here, the authors of the Bible, they have created for us a parallel. They've created for us 2 stories back to back. You have the story of Sodom and Gomorrah second to show the destructive nature of being inhospitable, of being cruel to people who are in your town, in your village, who are poor, who are needy. And they juxtapose it with that first story of Abraham. That Abraham, he's outside, he's schwitzing, kechom hayom, it says, it's a hot day, and he's outside sitting, outside the tent. And why is he sitting outside the tent for 5 points? He's looking for guests. Very good. And the reason why he's outside looking for guests is that he just got circumcised at the age of 90. And so he is out there recuperating, really. He's out there, get a little fresh air, maybe that'll help, but that being said, I wouldn't bet on it. I have a little nephew maybe who might be able to tell me. He was just circumcised a couple days ago, but he is out, but Abraham, again, a little older than my nephew. So it's like, so now he's out there hot, he's recuperating, he's schwitzing, I'm sure. And who does he see? He sees 3 people who are also hot and tired and schwitzy. And the Torah says, he doesn't say, hey, you guys over there, come to me and let me help you out a little bit. He gets up and he runs to these people. He gets up and he sort of chases them down and says, hey, come into my tent. Yes. Come into my tent. Come here and let me help you. Yeah. He was a very spry 90-year-old. And so anyway, so he gets the people and he tells them, he says, hey, come in here. I'll give you a little bit of water. I'll give you maybe a little bread, just a little something for you. Maybe you get a little wash in, get the dust off your feet, and then you can be on your merry way, right? And so the people go, okay, fine, and they come to his tent. But as they're doing that, he runs back and he talks to Sarah, and he talks to the people in his household, and he doesn't give them a little water. He doesn't give them a little bread. He makes a feast for them. He makes a whole huge buffet, you know, what's a really good buffet place? I don't think there is maybe a really good buffet place. That's the point. Maybe. Back in Houston. I think more this was like the Brazilian steakhouse. You know, so it's like he's doing that and they're getting all these slices of meat and bread and whatever they need. And I think the point of the story is they're giving more than was expected. They're giving more than what was required. And isn't that the sign of the righteous, right? That they're able to give more than what is needed, as opposed to the city of Sodom, which is giving not only nothing, they're not seeking to help, but what are they seeking to do? Harm, right? They're seeking to do evil, you know, to people who are strangers in their city. So it's the opposite. Abraham is running to do good and running to do more than what is expected or required, you know, for the mitzvah of haknasat orchim, of welcoming the guests, of how we are treating people, gemilut chasadim, acts of love, acts of righteousness, acts of kindness. And Sodom, the exact polar opposite. And I think they're giving us that example. What happens with the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah? That's it. You know, they're blowing up, they're done. And what happens with Abraham and Sarah? They get a son out of it. They get Isaac. And it's not only about Isaac. Isaac is great, but it's not only about him, but it's about the fulfillment of a promise, the fulfillment of a covenant that God makes with Abraham and says, you're going to have descendants like the stars in the sky and the sands on the seashore. You're going to have descendants. You're going to be the father of not Isaac. You're going to be the father of great nations. And where does that start? With kindness, with compassion, with welcoming people, and with doing more, perhaps, than what is required. And I think that's the message of this story. It's a really great one for all of us, I think, is that for us, it's a matter of doing good in the world. And when we do good in the world, we create blessing. We create goodness. We create a world of our dreams. Shabbat Shalom. On page 586, let's rise together for Aleinu. Second paragraph. Aleinu לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. page 591. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Please be seated. We are on page 597. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. Tonight we remember Don Rolander, who was our temple organist for, it's actually 50 years, I turned out, almost 50 years. He was here at the synagogue, at the organ, at this piano, helping lead us in services, lending his tremendous talents to sort of lifting up our community in prayer. And so we certainly send our condolences to all of his friends, his loved ones. The funeral was today. I was there with Denise and with Polly, and Laura and Penny came. It was a really wonderful service. And so we definitely, it was appreciated. Our presence was appreciated there. And we, send our love and our comfort to all who are grieving his loss. We also mention those who died during this last year. Joan Keller, Leo Weintraub, Nina Stegg, Janet White, Phyllis Kraus, Phyllis Allman, Sheila Buckwalter, Bob Mansfeld, Albert Gart, Barry Dabowski, Ann Blumenkrantz, Shirley Matler, Richard Clausen, Mary John Resch, Liesel Schick, Jay Roth, Fran Brickman, John Conway, Michael Verib, Janice Lederer, and Bernice Lipman. We are observing the yurtzeit this week of Dorothy Abrams, Leo Applebaum, Simon Bellick, Max Berman, Maria Bogdanowitz, Leonore Cohen Rosewater, Dorothy Cooperman, Joanna Eichel, Paul R. Ellis, Spliss Finkel, Gladys Foreman, Keith Jones, Howard Kalicka, Max J. Caden, Sonia Caden, Lila J. Kraut, Lena Crone, Lily Malchuk, Sarah Malkin, Evelyn Marks, Morris Medjuk, Harold Moroff, Ada Nat, Miss Sharon Orlick, Joseph Polar, Norman Reeve, Moises Rodnitsky, Robert Rosen, Rose Salzman, Ann Shermer, Annie Last Schwartz, Jill Donna Shapiro, Ellen S. Singer, Pavel Slavinsky, Jacob C. Tobe, Samuel von Posnack, Mark Weiss and Sarah Weiss, and Sidney Human. Is there anyone else observing a yurtzeit, saying Kaddish for any reason? Is a name to mention? Let's rise together. 598, Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma devra cherutei v'yamlich malchutei, Bechayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, Bagala v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam l'almei almaya, Yit barach v'yishtabach v'yit pa'ar v'yit ramam v'yit naseh, v'yit adar v'yit aleh v'yit halal Shmei dekudisha barichu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushvechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlomo rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimramav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to Israel, and all over the world. As together we say, Amen. Please be seated. It is now my pleasure to call Sandy Sunter, one of our co-presidents, to come forward to give us some announcements.
Yes, thank you. Shabbat Shalom, everybody who is here. Shabbat Shalom to everybody who is at home. And thank you. It must be Pete making sure we were streaming tonight, so thank you. Wanted to welcome everybody. Some familiar faces, some new faces, and I certainly, again, welcome everybody. We don't have a lot of announcements tonight, but watch your e-blast because much is coming up. But for tonight, tomorrow morning at 10:30, we are going to be having our first of a Saturday Shabbat service. We have not done that for a long time, and tomorrow we are meeting at 10:30, and we are going to be honoring veterans. So if anybody is a veteran, veteran, or just want to come and honor and celebrate the veterans, please do come tomorrow morning at 10:30. November the 16th, which is coming up soon, we will be participating in an interfaith Thanksgiving service at the Church of Latter-day Saints in Largo. Again, this is our opportunity to be with our interfaith community and to pray together and celebrate together. And if I understood correctly, I think Rabbi is doing the invocation? Yep. So Rabbi will be doing that invocation. And again, just please watch your e-blast because we do have lots of other things coming. It was funny what you talked about tonight, Rabbi, because I usually like to have a little, I bring a little something to share. And I was looking at some things today, and this is the one I chose today. It's called The Poor Man's Miracle. No one showed any compassion for the poor man as he went from house to house, begging for a goshan or a crust of bread. Many a door was slammed in his face, and he was turned away with insults. Therefore, he grew despondent. One wintry day, as he was trudging through the slippery streets, he fell, broke his leg, and thereupon they took him to the hospital. When the people of the town heard that a poor stranger had been taken to the hospital, suffering from a broken leg, they began to feel very sorry for him. Some went to comfort him. Others brought him good things to eat. When he left the hospital, they furnished him with warm clothes and gave him a tidy sum of money. Before the poor man left town, he wrote to his wife, "Praise God, dear wife, a miracle happened. I broke a leg." The moral of that story is, most people would sooner help one who has fallen than help keep him from falling. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Sandy. We're on page 626. We've come this far. We might as well sing one more song together. Ein Kelohenu, one of my favorites. So let's rise together in song. I will note that for tomorrow's service, Joyce from Temple Bethel will be with us. So if you were wondering who is doing the singing tomorrow, it's Joyce. So that'll be great. Me too. Ari. That's true. Let's join together. Ein Kelohenu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkenu, Ein Kemoshienu, Mi Kelohenu, Mi Chadonenu, Mi Kemalkenu, Mi Kemoshienu, Nodel Elohenu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Emalkenu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. Like to invite all of our young people to come forward, all of our kids, for a little motzi. Okay, let's take off our challah cover and let's join together. Ha-motzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Thank you, God. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. B'te'avon, have a little nash, and we'll have grape juice. Yes, we're going to now go into our oneg. Shabbat shalom, everyone.